Welcome to the Women in My World podcast. I'm Shari Rigby. Do you need some inspiration in your life to keep walking in your faith as you step into your calling? The Women in My World's guests will impact you as they share their triumphs and their tragedies through the art of storytelling as we discuss the world today and how they are influencing it. The show is dedicated to women who put their faith into action by tackling critical real-life issues that will change and impact the world. I am excited to share the mic with celebrities, authors, influencers, trailblazers, and world changers as they dig deep into how they overcome by leaning into Christ. Well, today's guest is an amazing woman. Debra began her love for acting at Northwestern University. Debra studied both drama and opera. You may recognize Debra from the classic series Full House, feature film Father Figures, ABC's new crime drama, Will Trent, and her most recent role as the fashionista Lillian Lee in my upcoming feature film. She has 60 film and TV credits, including working with Angela Lansbury, Bruce Willis, Carol O'Connor, Tyler Perry, Cuba Gooding, and Brian Dennehy. She co-wrote Life at Stipe with her daughter Sarah, a comedy series based on the Stipe Studio, their Atlanta-based acting studio. She's an entrepreneur. Her and her husband have an Airbnb business, Stay Dahlonega, hosting guests in luxury tree houses and cabins in Dahlonega, Georgia. She loves to share her story of God's enormous grace in her life and hopes to inspire people in joy and courageous dream chasing. Please welcome my dear friend and today's guest, Debra Stipe. Welcome, Debra. So good to have you here today on the Women in My World.
So good to be here. Thanks for having me, Shari.
Absolutely. I'm excited to get into everything entertainment and media, and then just to talk about how God is using you and what he's doing with you. But first, I always start the podcast with, how do you define success?
Wow. For me, success is really fully potentiating God's giftedness for you. You know, whatever he has put in you, I think that that's what you need to sort of nurture and grow and lean into his ways and not your own.
I love that. And I think that's really what it means to find success and peace while we're actually walking in that success. It's
Yes.
really about God's kingdom. And I love that. I love that.
Well, you know, I'll mention there was a favorite verse I had as a girl. It was Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust the Lord completely. Don't ever trust yourself.
Yes.
In everything you do, put God first, and he will direct you and crown your efforts with success. And I loved that success part because it, tripped all the Enneagram 3s in me. But it was really a journey understanding that, I was kind of taking the reins and that he really wanted to be doing the directing and that his ways really work much better than mine do. So it was really a journey of surrender. And of course, it continues to be even now.
Isn't it interesting how we continuously, every single day, we have to get up and make a decision to turn it over to him? I mean, I know for me, I'm so type A. I am so type A. I'm so controlling. I know that about me. And at the same time, I realized that is the way that God created me. So how do I use that to glorify the kingdom? And yet at the same time, just know that I have to completely submit to him, because there are so many times when I want to get in his way and do it my way.
Oh, yeah.
That I'm sure he's sitting there going, Shari, I need you to hit the highway. It's
right.
Get out of my way. You're going to get ran over. And
right?
I just think that's the way it goes. But so talk a little bit about one of the things I love and that our listeners love is to talk about how God, when did you know that the Lord called you into entertainment and media? What was that moment like for you? And share a little bit about your journey with us.
I grew up in a family of 7 kids. My mom had 7 children.
Wow.
I know, right? And it was really a joy to grow up in that environment. Our house was our playground. I mean, and I was usually the ringleader, putting on skits. That was just sort of our way. My favorite way of play, really, was make believe and creating stories, creating little shows for the neighbor kids. So it was very much in my DNA, and I really feel like God wrote that in me. I came to faith when I was 10. I went to a really wonderful little Awana club at our church.
I love that.
And she shared the story of the great shepherd, and I was so taken by the concept of this loving shepherd, but also recognized, wow, I've been believing in Jesus, but I had actually never made a decision to follow him, so I did at that point. But it wasn't until my later years in my 20s where not only did his grace become much more deep for me, but also realizing that he had me in a difficult industry and that I felt like it was where I was supposed to be, but that I couldn't do it alone.
Right.
Not only with him, but I needed a circle. I needed a tribe.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that because that's really, I believe, how God creates us too, right? It's like, let me connect you first and foremost vertically so that we know that we're in alignment with him.
Right.
And then we, at that point, can actually work horizontally with all the people that he puts in our world.
Yes.
And really, not only is it that we should be inspiring and encouraging those around us, but they do the same for us. It's like that iron sharpens iron, right? And we need those people around us. That's why I love when it talks about making sure that you are equally yoked. It's not just in marriage, it's also in relationships as well. Yeah. Because when you have those moments, you need that tribe to come around you and encourage you. And this industry can wreak havoc on our lives.
Without a doubt.
And so that's something else to talk a little bit about because, entertainment and media is a really challenging work that we do. And so when God calls us into it, it is one of the places I always go, really, is this really where you want me?
Right.
But what has that journey looked like for you? And do you believe that, or do you feel like it's exactly what it looked like or what you dreamt that it would look like? Or has it completely, what's the journey been like for you as you've encountered, different times, different seasons in your life through entertainment and media?
Wow. I think one thing that people don't recognize is there are days when you are driving around in that limousine and you're working with Bruce Willis. And then there are days where you are pounding the pavement again. Yeah. And they can happen within a week's time of each other.
Yeah.
It's really that real. I think that the journey for me was filled with some great successes, but then some real, what I would say, compromise. I think that it really cost me. We're getting very real right now.
No. And this is what I think inspires so many of, the viewers and the listeners, because that's what they need is they need authentic and transparent. And how do I do this and do it knowing that, hey, I'm on a journey right now. It might not always be right, but anyway, please keep going because this is what they love.
Yep. So I went to Northwestern. It was a great school, great drama school, and it was a very sort of secular environment. And for me, I don't know if you felt this, Shari, but you sort of feel as an artist in the church, you sort of feel, I felt growing up, misunderstood. I grew up in a great church, but dancing wasn't really encouraged, and I think they didn't really know what to do with my level of dedication to my art. I was doing musicals and plays and the dance troupe and the swing choir. I was busy. But I was still involved in church. I still sang in the church. But I felt like they didn't really quite understand my passion, my artistic passion. Well, then, I'm at Northwestern and we're doing this number about kind of poking fun at believers. And so I just decided I needed to bow out of this number. But it took a lot of courage for me to say, you know what, could I just not be in this number? It's a very select troupe that I've been asked to be in, but I can't be in this number. So there you're feeling like a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
You're feeling like you're not really fitting in both worlds. So that's hard. Also, like in the secular training environment, art is elevated, right?
Yes,
and so you're creating these characters that are not yourself.
Right.
So fast forward, I moved to Los Angeles to sort of spread my wings. I'd been doing professional theater in Chicago. I moved to L.A., and I'm given my second job. My first job is the A-Team with Mr. T,
I love it.
which was great fun. I'm the tour guide on the Universal bus. But so my second role was like a really demanding, it was the lead in this film. And they had a screen test I had to do with Ryan O'Neal. Wow. And Norman Mailer was directing the film. And
Wow.
I used to kind of not get very specific about these things, but now because of the internet, everything's out there, so I just may as well be real with it. So anyways, I am chosen for this role, and I knew that the film was probably going to be rated R. I knew the character of this woman.
Yeah.
But that was it. There was nothing in the script that I necessarily felt uncomfortable with. So I'm into filming about 2 months. I've met Farrah Fawcett. I'm working with Isabella Rossellini.
Wow.
You know, Francis Ford Coppola has his name on this project. And we're 2 months into filming. And the producer pulls me aside and he says, we're going to need a little bit of quick nudity in this one scene. And I was shook. But I felt so powerless. And the thing I want to really communicate here, Shari, is it's not just me as a believer, but it's even me as a woman.
Yeah.
You know, I was so
Absolutely.
so naive, and it was so early in the game for me that I didn't really realize, you know, you could call your agents and say you're not comfortable with this. Right. You could call your agents and say, if we're going to do this, I need a lot more money. But I don't really want to do this, but I truly felt powerless. And I felt like I was so into the process. And I think maybe I was about success.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sure that's playing in my mind too.
Absolutely.
But I'm also, you know, justifying it. It's a role. And again, I know that there's solid believers that fall in very different lines. You know, she might be comfortable in this bathing suit and I might not be. Right. You know, I mean, these are some of these are gray areas.
Absolutely.
You know, and Schindler's List, I think there was nudity in Schindler's List, and it is done for a noble cause.
Absolutely.
So I know these are sticky issues.
Right.
But this is the industry, folks.
Yeah.
And my problem, I think, most of all in this journey was that I wasn't walking alongside the journey with anybody. Here I was in Provincetown, Massachusetts, kind of all by myself, pre-cell phones, and, you know, just feeling cornered.
Yeah.
And I would do it very differently these days, you know. But at the same time, it's God's journey for me.
Right.
Because up until that time, you know, I'd made mistakes, but this felt like a big mistake. And so the journey of, it could get me emotional, but the journey of coming back made all the difference, right?
Yeah.
You know, and his grace and his sacrifice for me, you know, was about this big prior to that. And after that, his grace was huge, right? So in a weird way, I'm thankful for the journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that, though. That story is so great, Debra, because I love that you can use everything. And God says that, like, right?
Yes.
He's going to use everything for his glory.
Right.
And so he's going to use that testimony that you have to allow your voice to be heard. And what I love is that you're sharing it today, because there's a lot of women who are listening and that are still encountering these very situations day in and day out of the industry and other work areas in life. But I will tell you, one of the biggest things that I've dealt with the Women in My World ministry was when I went to Hollywood. You know, I thought, here it is, God, you know, you're going to make me this huge movie star. I mean, that's everybody's dream. And you're sitting there and I remember sitting in this little studio listening and watching these big actors do their thing every week, and they would rehearse and they would just come in and they would sharpen their skill. And I would sit there and I'm just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. What am I doing? Why am I here? And I remember the moment that I said, you know what, God, I'm going to quit. I'm done with this. Wow. And he said to me that night, he said, you're here for my women. And I will never forget that moment. And I looked around the room and what I saw was broken women. Wow, yes. Women in Hollywood who really, whether they were believers or not believers, they were put into situations where they were always felt to feel like they were not enough. Right. And when they did get into a position when they were hired for something, because of that place that they had now been put into this position, they felt like they had to make everybody happy. And so, God called me to start the Women in My World because of that moment. And so to really praise his name and pray. But what I've seen over the years is I would have women I mean, it's still happening today, but young women of all ages really, that would come to me and say, "You're never going to believe what happened." And they would share, I'm in a situation where my agent or my manager wants to basically let me go because I won't go audition for. And one of them had actually shared, she was devastated and broken, shared that she couldn't audition for 50 Shades of Grey. And the agent was just beside themselves that how could you ever turn down something like this? And had another young woman who came out recently and said, same thing, kind of the story that you have, is that she was in a situation, she was already on set, she was an emancipated teen, and there was nobody around to walk her through the situation. And she felt in that moment like there was no other choice, and walked away from it. And the devastation and the level of, once again, not only do you feel like you're not enough when you get into these positions, you're working so hard to get that job, that next job, that next role, and then you get there and all of a sudden you're like, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose out on whatever this might be. Right. And when you're talking about the level of people that you're working with. So I just want to commend you for sharing that story, and I actually think God is going to use it for greater purposes than you ever imagined.
Thank you. Because in God's economy, nothing is wasted, right?
That's it. There's nothing that's wasted. Yeah. And I actually think maybe not more so, just differently with social media and all the things that are going on in our world today. Yeah. Things are hitting our women harder than ever before. And so I just want to encourage you to keep going with that. How did your journey, I know because the journey in Hollywood looks different for everybody, or even entertainment in general, but you're a mama, you're a wife. How did that look for you? How have you been able to continue to navigate being a mom and also this journey that God called you into?
It's interesting. After this incident, I kind of was on a journey back to having a healthier walk, really. And some of that was just making the decisions to find fellowship. Right. And God totally blessed me with a group called Associates in Media, which was writers, directors, producers in the industry of faith. And then also a women's Bible study that met at my apartment every Saturday. Yes. And Patty Heaton actually was in that group. And Patty was such a breath of fresh air because she's a pistol. She's funny. She's strong. She's, you know what I mean? Like, she doesn't take it, Right. I care too much about people's feelings sometimes, I tend to be people pleaser.
Amazing.
She's amazing and amazingly talented. So she was just good to have rub off on me. But that was such an incredibly encouraging group to be in. I love it. But so after being in that group, and then I meet my husband, we get married, we have Sarah. And then he tells me he wants to move to Atlanta. And initially I was not really on board, but over time it felt like the right thing. And honestly, I think when you become a parent, your priorities tend to shift, right? And for me, that was a good thing. So, and I also felt like I was turning down more and more auditions and projects, and so I felt more at peace to say no. So we moved to Atlanta, and I really was a full-time mom. I mean, I was really, I was like, okay, I guess this is my new journey, and we had Walker, our son, but I loved having that season, honestly, kind of away from the industry because I poured into the kids. I directed some things at the school. I wrote some, stuff for the arts festival. We just had a great time. And our kids were creative. And so it just kind of was a wonderful season. But then I started hearing that more was happening in Atlanta. And now I literally feel like God brought Hollywood here for me. I mean, it's amazing. It's really remarkable, all this. So I just think I'm living my best life because you can have such an amazing quality of life here. and there's so much opportunity.
Absolutely.
So,
I love
feel
that.
very spoiled.
I love that. And I want to go back quickly just to say as well, like for you to get plugged into a group that really did inspire and encourage you and a women's Bible study. That was one thing I always would say to the ladies who would come to the Women in My World in LA is, I would have new ones walk in and they were like, okay, I just got here. I'm from such and such a country or such and such a state, and I'm going to get that agent and I'm going to get that. And I said, the very first thing you need to do is you need to plug into a church. Yes. And you need to continue your community, because those people are not going to lift you up and encourage you the way that the people that God's going to bring alongside of you. Yes. And so I'm so excited to hear that that's what happened. And then I love that God brought you here and started this journey with you, because that's a part of our season. We get to it sharpens us. Like we get to bring that in now to everything that we do. Our characters, I feel like, are so much more impactful, and we get to be able to share something that maybe we weren't able to really speak into as a character years ago.
Yes,
do you feel the same way?
Oh, yes. It's funny. When God was sort of wooing me back to a fuller walk with him, we were at a fantastic church down at Rolling Hills Covenant Church, and the pastor there did this amazing sort of drama, and he cast me in the lead. I love it. And I think it was like the first time in a long time where the intersection of my faith met my work. And it was like, it was just
hallelujah.
It was gold. It was gold. It was so meaningful for me.
Yeah.
So more of that is good,
Well, I love
really.
that too, because he started something in you as a little girl. I mean, that's kind of how mine started, and I didn't even realize he was going to call me into this, but he did start me in a place where I loved sitting in a movie theater and dreaming about what it was going to look like, or, and that was so, but I love how he brought it all the way around again. Like he was like, I'm not going to leave you nor forsake you. I'm going to actually bring you into something that's so much better. So much better. And I'm going to do it where because I love how the Lord does that. He's like, the Lord goes, I'm the one that's going to get the glory in this, but I'm going to give you something that's so far greater that you're going to have a joy and a peace that will surpass all understanding.
Right.
I'm going to bring you into something. And so I love that he has you here. And now you're actually doing things not only back in the industry again, because you are a stunner on camera. Let me tell you, I just like watching you as Lillian Lee. Like, I'm telling you what, wait until people see you in this movie.
I had way too much fun, Shari.
So good. We'll talk about that in a second. But you get to work now with your daughter as well. Tell us a little bit, because you have done additional things, coaching. You work with your daughter. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's I love this story. When we were living in this subdivision not too far from here, Sarah's 12 years old. And again, I didn't make her like theater. I really didn't. I promise. It was just in her, and a really beautiful singer. So when she was 12,
she's incredible.
She says, Mom, let's put on a show and let's rally the neighbor kids.
Yeah.
So I said, great. How can I help Sarah? Because she's a little boss woman. So we print up the flyers and we get, 20 kids in the neighborhood to do The Wizard of Oz in the foyer of our living room. And we have, all the families come on Friday. And this is how I grew up. But I mean, it's really in Sarah. And she's not in the show. She's directing the show. Okay?
Yeah, and she's a boss.
Yes, she is.
She is.
And so really that was the birth of what we now call Stipe Studio. Yeah. At the time we called it Seven Dwarfs, the Seven Dwarf Playhouse, where little people learn and laugh a lot, because we had littles, but then now we're Stipe Studio. So I love, it's interesting. I worked with an actress not too long ago, and I felt like it was not just helping her as an actor. She's looking for an agent. She's got a lot of gifts. But it was also like mentoring her.
Exactly.
And so it was beyond the schoolroom. It was really hopefully breathing some real life into her.
I love that. I love that, because that's something that's so important. Talk a lot about that with, even the difference between discipleship and mentoring. Discipleship is one thing, but mentoring is really just a whole nother ballgame. And specifically what we do in the industry is to be able to sharpen the young women or young men. I always focus on, for me, young women and how do we navigate them? And so often it's not, I almost kind of veer away from the industry because I want to see what's happening with them in their walk, and how do I sharpen them to make them solid or stand on firm ground and who they are, before they actually go back into the industry again. Because there's so many things that we face.
Oh, yes. And without a solid identity, really grounded in Christ, no matter what industry we're in, we're going to be blown by the wind.
Right. Absolutely.
I love your encouragement to find that church, to find your small group.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah. Find your people. That's what God, and
Yes.
also my thing too is I really love to see people serve others. I feel like that's a part of the process that we've forgotten. I really believe that God calls us to serve others, just like that's love thy God with all your heart, love others. And so it's really how do we love others, and it's really about serving them. And so that's something I see through the mentoring process, which is really helpful, I believe, in the entertainment world, because it takes the eyes off of ourselves.
Yes.
Because the entertainment world is going promote within who you are, what you do, how you do it. Yes. Whereas if we serve others, we actually take the eyes off of ourselves and put it on somebody else. And I think that's really specifically to who God is in our lives as well.
Absolutely.
I love Sarah was on set with us as well for Golden Influencer, and I loved it. She was one of the characters, and she also came and shadowed me. And I love, her. She ends up directing a scene in the movie. I was like, come on, we're like on our the last moment of our night. And I remember specifically going, if I don't have her actually direct this, I'm not going to have I won't have something for her to do. And she stepped in, and she was so powerful and yet so humble and kind and gentle and gracious. And she knew exactly where she was going and what she was going to do. And she was just able to execute it perfectly. And I can't wait for people to see her scene in the movie, because it's there. It made it. Exciting. It made it. It's beautiful.
I so appreciate you giving her that opportunity. You have no idea.
No,
really.
It was so great to see her and just to be here and flow on set with everybody. But as we start to kind of wrap up, not only have you continued in the industry and you're doing things, you're also working with students, you're mentoring, you're on set, you're a powerhouse. And then recently, my husband and I got to go stay in one of your fabulous Airbnbs and talk a little bit about that, because you're an entrepreneur as well.
It's funny. My husband definitely is. And I don't normally do this, but we had bought this cute little house right on the square, right off the square of Dahlonega. And I said, honey, I'm learning about Airbnb. What if we tried it with this little house? And he's like, what is it? He was actually very skeptical initially. Then I said, no, I think I can set it up. We already stage our houses. Let's, fill it with, the dishes and all the necessaries. And and I'll create a little team of girls to help me clean it. And let's just try this. We can do this for. So we tried it, and we didn't really realize, God knew. But Dahlonega is a charming town.
It's beautiful.
It's a destination. I'm putting a thankless, shameless plug here.
Please do, because everybody needs to know about it.
I know. Yeah. It's such a charming town, and it has, wineries and very family friendly and great restaurants, little boutiques, hiking, waterfalls. It's an hour north of Atlanta. So, anyways, we tried the little house, and then as we got into it, we thought, what if we did some interesting things? So we did some tree houses, and our team of guys are amazing that crafted these things for us.
Beautiful.
They have amazing stories themselves. They come out of a program called Waypoint. Waypoint is a faith-based rehabilitation program in Dahlonega.
Wow.
So they are all graduates of Waypoint.
Wow.
And they honed their craftsman skills at Waypoint. So that, we call them our treehouse squad.
I love
I know.
I
So
love
they
that.
crafted our 3 tree houses. And then we've got the log cabin is where you stayed.
Yes.
But I'm so glad you enjoyed it. We just love it. It's easy to talk about because it's a special place.
It's really special.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect. And so we pulled up, Matt and I, we just celebrated 26 years of marriage.
Wow.
And so that was our anniversary time together.
Congratulations.
And thank you.
Yes.
And we're so, we're busy. And so it was like, okay, and you never know. And everything always, it looks so beautiful and on the pictures. And then we pulled up and, we rolled in and we were both we walked around like we were kids in a candy store. We were like, did you see that cute like sitting area? Did you see the patio? Did you see the fire pit? Did you see the bathroom? And I'm like, I'm taking a bath in that bathtub right now. And I just thought it was so beautiful. You guys did such a great job.
Thank you.
And I just love it though. You're a woman of God. You have absolutely stepped into your calling, and you do it with grace and beauty and your faith, and it just radiates from you. And you're just incredible. I love watching you with Sarah, and I love watching what you're doing for the kingdom of God. And you're an entrepreneur, and I love that God just comes in and he goes, let me show you what I can do that's far greater than anything you ever imagined.
Yes.
It's awesome.
It is awesome.
It's
Ephesians 3, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Immeasurably more.
Immeasurably more.
Yes.
Tell everybody where they can follow you and how they can stay connected to you.
Great.
And what's next for Debra.
Yes. You can find me on Instagram, just following my name, Debra Stipe. And I have I enjoy it. It's a little bit of a creative outlet for me.
Okay.
I might share my day. I'll share my acting journey. I'll share some things with the Airbnbs. But we also have a separate Instagram for Stay Dahlonega. When you think about where should I stay in Dahlonega, stay Dahlonega. That's easy enough. And Dahlonega is a tricky word, but you'll find it, Dahlonega. Stay Dahlonega. And then I'm on Facebook, but I don't get on there very often. We do have a Stipe Studio account. Our website, you can find us for coaching. I pretty much do that one-on-one now. And that's pretty much it. What do I have coming up? I really enjoyed an episode of Will Trent that I did recently. So you can stream my episode. It's episode 6.
Okay.
But I love the show. And people are enjoying it. It's on ABC, but you can stream it on Hulu. And I think it's coming to some other platforms as well.
That's great.
So I play a fun CEO kind of cold woman on that show, which is fun.
Love it.
I know. It's very fun. And I'm waiting to hear on a couple of projects that I shouldn't probably say anything about yet. But I'm doing some speaking. I really love to share my testimony to women's clubs. I have a couple other environments like this that I'm looking forward to sharing. I have some projects that I would love to see kind of get a second life. So that pretty much sums it up.
Wow. Well, you're staying very busy.
Yes.
And I love that. I love that. People always say to me, aren't you ready to kind of like just take some time off? Because I love playing pickleball and hanging out with my friends too, and I'm like, well, but I realize that there are so many cool things that God has before us.
Yes.
And as long as we're walking through those doors, I mean, we just keep going.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
I'll add this too. My daughter, she inspires me in so many ways. And she said, Mom, I'm praying 5 things. And I said, I like that. I like the simplicity of consistently praying these 5 things. So I started it and I said, okay, I'm going to pray that my marriage would flourish. I'm going to pray that my children would thrive. I'm going to pray that my walk with God would be zealous. I'm going to pray that God would bring the right people into my life because I'm prone to be very independent. And then I'm going to pray that God would give me a second act. Because I'm 60, and it's out there on Wikipedia anyway, so I might as well tell you that.
I love it.
And I just feel like, Patty Heaton wrote a book, and it's called Your Second Act. And every chapter is about different women of faith that have created a second act.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's giving me that. I just feel like so thankful for all the opportunities that he blesses me with, and the fact that I love my work and love my tribe, and I love being here.
Absolutely. Well, and I love that it's that simple. It's, because that is exactly what God's, bring it to me, lay it down before me, and let me show you what I can do.
Yes.
And I love that. And I think that's so smart and so on point about that. So, and, I keep thinking, we're getting better.
Right?
We're getting better.
Absolutely.
I'm like, whew.
Yeah, you got a ways before you catch up with me. But,
I'm not far.
But
I'm not far.
Yes.
But I think we're getting better, and I really enjoy this part of my life and the process of it. So I'm thrilled to know you and just so appreciate it. And I just love that you're one of the women in my world, and I'm excited to keep doing life with you.
I am excited for it too. Shari, it's been an honor.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for being here today.
Absolutely.
So cool. Love it.
I loved it too. I loved it.
Everybody, what an incredible show. I hope that you guys stay connected. And I want to thank Edify for being our sponsor today. Make sure that you check us out on Edify, Apple, Spotify, you name it. You do not want to miss plugging in and hearing all of the episodes of The Women in My World. If you thought today encouraged you, you will be excited to know that so many women are sharing their powerful stories. So make sure that you go on there, download the Women in My World podcast, and share it with a friend. Thanks for joining us.